Right, briefly, we'd like to take up the subject of dispensationalism. Now, when we read the Holy Scriptures, we do not meet with dispensationalism. Isn't that strange? Equally, we do not meet with the rapture or millennialism or the holiness movement of full sanctification. We don't meet with universal salvation. There is a monument of teachings out there in the world that we don't meet with. But teachers will come along and impress us that they are there. They will deliberately misinterpret Scripture for their own devious ends. And unfortunately, when these people come around, they come around the first time, as in the 1800s. Well, we go back indeed to the beginning of the 1700s, okay, when they started to rise up out of the pit, these people. And the more they rose up and the more they banded together, the greater was the influence for error. Now, one of the teachings that was brought up out of the pit was dispensationalism. Now, John Nelson Darby, Nelson named after Lord Nelson, okay, by his parents, was born in 1800. He is the man that is credited for dispensationalism. In a sense, that is correct. In another sense, not correct. Because the influence upon him came from others, such as Edward Irving. We will come into him shortly. First of all, in the times that John Nelson Darby was living, born into, there was despair, utter despair across the world. Wars and rumours of wars were going on. It was hell on earth. Satanic times. Everything that everybody knew had just been thrown out of the window. Everybody was meeting with a new world being created right around them. No sooner had one thing been created than another thing was created, and another thing was created. People didn't know where the heck they were. The calm and the peace of what had been was overturned. Psychologically, people were in a mess, an absolute mess that never grown into this. It was just all, this new world was all forced upon them. The blackness and the darkness, the filth. It was just all forced upon them. It was as though it came in overnight. And people couldn't run away from it. They were fast bound by it, by this new world, industrial world. There were some good things came out, but it was hell on earth to live through. The devil was certainly let loose for a season, and it was not just the world in general, but the church in particular. She came, or as we say, Christendom, who reflects the church, should reflect the church of Jesus Christ, but never does. Christendom is made up of all those who profess Christ, no matter what denomination. Okay? And Christendom is supposed to be a reflection of the church that is behind the veil. As simple as that. Now, Christendom began to be attacked. Horrendously attacked on every side. Up, down, sideways, backwards, the lot. Frontwards. With all these false teachers that had come out 1700s, joined themselves together and increased and increased and increased, the gods coming up and out of the pit of hell, going backwards and forwards for more deviousness to be brought forth out of that pit. Up and down they were, going like gods, and the people reflected them. The ministers were like gods because they were the same spirit. And John Nelson Darby was one of them eventually. One influenced by the gods that were keeping going up and down out of the earth from hell itself. Now, John Nelson Darby, of course, was from a rich family, and a rich family, well-to-do family. They didn't know any hardship, and he decided to go into the ministry of the law, okay? So he studied law, and he went to the bar, and he got his pass, and he started up in the solicitors, and then he supposedly got disillusioned, okay? We don't know if he did, or whatever, but the story is that he got disillusioned, and he joined the Church of Ireland. Okay, the Anglican side to the Church of Ireland. In 1826 he became a priest, ordained as a priest in the Church of Ireland. Whilst in the Church of Ireland, to cut a long story short, he looked around and he decided to come out because he found, so he says, okay, we can't ever believe him. We only say what he says. Alright? He found that the Church of England, the Anglican Church, was as dead as a doorpost. Lifeless, dead, formal, corrupt. Aye, a corrupter, right? And it was dead. And it was everything that he said it was. So that was right. He only reflected what everybody knew. It wasn't a new thing. The Anglican Church is as dead then as it is today, and dead as today as it is then, was then. It even got some bishops going out as pirates. Oh, on the high seas. Bishop of Wells. They used to come back, get the plunder. And they'd sell their offices. Some of them would sell their offices, okay, for money. Anyhow, it was in such a state that Darby said, I had to come out. I could no longer follow the church of the Anglican Church, okay? And of course there was the Tractarian movement going on, and higher criticism. German higher criticism. And, it was all over the place. And it was. It was. There was, just like the rest. In America particularly, when all the demons came up, we got the Mormons over here, JW's over here, eh? Seventh-day Adventists over here, yeah. Okay. And we got this movement, that movement, every other movement, and they were contending for themselves, and you got the revivalist movement overall, and they were all shouting and screaming, these movements, that God was with them. But it turned out that hell was with them. The devil himself was with them. It was one hell of a time for Christendom. One hell of a time. And Darby's here in the midst of it, adding his own piece of hell. Okay? may we just point out that in England we had an order, did we not, for wealthy houses with their children that, I may be mistaken, it might have been the eldest or the youngest, should go into the church. That was it. You go into the Anglican church. Which then completely confirmed that the Anglican Church, from its very inception, before, of course, Henry VIII granted its status, was made up of non-Christians. Nominal Christian only being there. See, non-Christians. No true children of God. They were just time servers. Okay? Now, John Nelson Darby decided to come out and to join himself with a band called the Brethren. The Hole in the Wall Gang, as I call them. And whilst there, in 1827 to 1828, that's when he was convalescing, wasn't he? In 1827, he fell from his horse and he banged his head on the gatepost. And he was convalescing. And now when he was convalescing, he said, I came up, oh, God visited me. Oh. Yes, and I came up with dispensationalism and the secret rapture. Yes, God taught me whilst I was convalescing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. God taught me. Me. And then Joseph Smith in another country was saying, God taught me this. Angel Moroni brought these tablets. And Charles Taze Russell, God taught me. God. God was with all these people, revealing these things to them, but never, ever revealing them to the common man. And secondly, never, ever revealing them to the reformers and the Puritans that had gone before them. Those that were in with sound doctrine. But of course, these people here, who was completely in error and knew no doctrine, weren't of the fundamentals of Christ. God was speaking to them. In other words, the devil was with them. And being with them, they were speaking lies in the name of God. Hypocrisy. Now then, whilst he was recovering in his house, as we say, or as he says, he was given the secret rapture, the teaching, and dispensationalism. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. If you read through history, he was given the secret rapture and dispensationalism by Edward Irving, a mate of his, okay, in a power courts meeting. Now, what do we mean by power courts meeting? Lady Power Court in Ireland held prophetic meetings because the times were going to be ushering in the millennial reign of Christ. Oh, so they had to sit around and work out when it would be. When shall this thing be? And of course, within the Brethren movement, there was a chap named Newton. B.W. Newton. Now he would go to another meeting elsewhere. Avebury, wasn't it? The Avebury conferences. Because he disagreed with Darby, we wouldn't side with Darby, wouldn't have anything to do with Darby. Darby's Darby, and Darby wouldn't have anything to do with him. Alright? Now then, at Lady Power Court's prophetic meeting one session, Darby was approached by this Edward Irving, okay, a Scottish minister who resided in London and was preaching in London, and was given a book by a Jesuit, one named Emmanuel Lacunza. The book had a pseudonym, Rabbi Ben Ezra. Okay? On top of that, the title, the coming in glory and great majesty, the Messiah coming in glory and great majesty was the title. That was given to Darby. Within it, it had dispensationalism plus the times of Daniel, the rapture, the secret rapture, dispensationalism. Everything that is taught now in millennialism and dispensationalism is to be found in that work. And that work was by a Jesuit. By a Jesuit. Yeah, Emmanuel Lacunza was a Jesuit. And what he was doing in writing the book, he's trying to placate the Pope, because the Jesuits were outlawed by the Pope because they'd done wrong and the Pope was going to be embarrassed, and so the Pope decided to distance himself. So the work was to ingratiate the Jesuits, okay, the military army of Popery. So this book was created, it was written in the Spanish, by the way, because Lacunza was a Spaniard. Edward Irving knew fully who the author was, had the work, he paid for the work, alright, to be translated into the English so it could be prolificated all over the place, because it was a wonderful story. Oh, just set for the times, absolutely set for the times. It's a story, it's a fairy story. It's one that would ingratiate itself to people. And he would have it translated, and he got it in the English, and he put tracts out. Okay, following the Tractarian movement. He put tracts out on this, and he introduced the book to John Nelson Darby at one of Lady Powercourt's meetings. Now, after that, 1827, Darby then has this accident, or cross providence, as we say. He then is reading this book, because he's got the time so to do, and within the year, he's taken on board everything in this book, and he's retranslated things, in the sense that where the book actually, and I've read it, where the book says that the Romanists will be secretly raptured and the Protestants will be left behind, Darby changes it, as equally as Edward Irving changed it, to read that the Protestants would be secretly raptured and the Papists left behind. Now, how deliberate can you get than that? Darby knew it was written for Romanism and by a Romanist. But that cunning old fox, with Edward Irving, deliberately spread lies from the pit, because they wanted to be noticed. Darby called his teaching new wine. Oh yeah, new wine. And it was his teaching. Okay? That the thoughts, he says, are new, and the teaching new wine. New wine. You see, new words came in those days, still with us, and increasing with us. Those superfluous, empty words. Alright? Now then, whilst he was preaching his new wine eschatology, alright, across the water, of course, others were doing the same. And we're back to this. He came out of that house spreading his new doctrine that God, he said, had given him. Oh, he had a direct communication with God. God showed him the rapture. Absolute blatant lie. And dispensationalism. And all the rest of it. God taught him. He taught me. And Charles Taze Russell in America was saying, God taught me this. Joseph Smith said, God brought the angel Moroni to me with these golden tablets, and he gave me these spectacles. He taught me. The centre was me, me, me. They were all titular popes, and nobody was to argue with them, according to themselves. If you argued with Charles Taze Russell or Smith or Darby, you'd be anathematized. Maranatha, you get out. We've spoken because we are the channels that God is using. That's what they were saying. That's what they were openly saying. The Joseph Smiths and the Ellen Whites and the Charles Taze Russells and the Thomas Campbells and the J. and Darbys and the Parnhams and the Seymours and all the rest of it. All the rest of them. Even the setup of the Darbys. Of the Brethren movement that Darby joined. He didn't create it. It's a misnomer, so to speak. That Darby created the Brethren movement. The Brethren movement was there before Darby got there. Newton and the rest were already there. What he did create is his exclusive movement. The exclusives, or what's known today as the closed Brethren. Alright? Well, we come back to this issue.